I'm thinking he might go all the way. Oh, yeah.
I always do that.
What do you do? What do you do?
I'm a night rider.
Come on.
Every time that I go up past midnight, I swear I get higher.
What a day, what a
Swear I gotta
day.
get higher now. I'm a night rider. Every time that I give what I gotta supply that fire.
Sure do, man. Oh, man. What a day. I am jubilated today. Now, you know it's going to be a good podcast when I come out and I just come off the rip saying words like jubilated. And I don't know, I'm ecstatic, you know? The feeling of exuberance is mighty within me. I am joyous. I am on a high, the ecstasy that's flowing through my veins. No, I didn't take any drugs, okay? Let me move on from that, but today is Christmas. Now, I know you're listening to this and you're saying, no, it's September. But do you remember the very first night of September? I can't even get it out of my mouth. Today is jock Christmas. Today is adult Christmas. Today is the day that men wait for 200 plus days. February comes and it goes, and as it goes, the feeling of fulfillment is gone, because every Sunday, all that we're left with is Jesus Christ. And now I'm not saying that that's something terrible. I love that. I think that's great. That's great for you. That's great for me. That's great for everybody in the world. And everybody in the world needs Jesus. But what I'm saying is that void that falls upon you once you leave your church service and you go home and sit on your couch and you wonder, what am I going to do today? You have nothing. You have nothing besides golf. You know, the Olympics, basketball sticks around for a little while, but nothing fills that gap like football. And tonight we have Derrick Henry filling gaps. That's right. Tonight is the night. You're hearing this on a Sunday, which is, hey, that's the kickoff Sunday, but tonight is the night where the Ravens kick off against the Chiefs in Arrowhead Stadium. And I am so excited to see this new reloaded Ravens offense with Derrick Henry running behind Patrick Ricard, who's running behind Lamar Jackson. I am just excited to see a team go out there and run the triple wing like it's Navy and run for 400 yards a game. I would not be surprised if Derrick Henry ends up with over 200 plus yards every single game, or, you know, I'm thinking Derrick Henry ends up in a space where he has 3 or 4 touchdown games. Do you just hand this guy the ball behind that line and behind Patrick Ricard, who is no slouch? This guy is around 300 pounds, 5'10". He's a bowling ball. He's fast. He's been one of the best fullbacks in the league, one of the only fullbacks in the league, and he is taking on the duty of becoming a shield for the most massive running back we have seen in a long time. This is Brandon Jacobs on steroids. This is a defensive end playing the running back position. Now, you look at the end of last season, and it was the Ravens against the Chiefs in a clash for the AFC title. Who was going to take on the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl? That's what the game had at stake. That game ended with a 17-10 victory from the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm expecting more offense out of the Chiefs this season. I'm expecting more offense out of the Ravens this season. I'm expecting so much, and that's the beautiful thing about football, is the expectations. The news that we hear since March, who's going where, who's coaching what, who's becoming the MVP, who's coming into the league, it all culminates in tonight's matchup. And what a night it is. I am so excited for the NFL season to be here. I woke up and it was like I floated out of bed this morning. I floated out of bed. I floated through my shift at work, and right at the end of it, I chopped my finger off. Now, I'm exaggerating, of course. This is a little bit of a, it's a comedic tool, right? Who doesn't extend the truth a little bit? I didn't slice it off, but I got a really good gash on my finger and ended up having to get 3 stitches, which caused me to miss the final match of the golf league. I get a chance to go back next week and play in the tournament, which is cool. It's an 18-hole tournament style play setting, but I was really missing out the final week. I mean, it really stinks that I wasn't able to make it, but on the bright side, I was able to get home, get everything I needed to get done, and sit down and have a chance to record this podcast, because I don't know if I would really have, if I really would have found the time with football right around the corner. We have football tonight. The Ravens take on the Chiefs. Friday night, the Packers and the Eagles take on each other in Brazil in a place where you can't wear green and both teams are green. Think about that. Excuse me while I enjoy a nice gulp of my smoothie here. So I went for a nice walk and I just kind of took a breather. We're working with these new tools that we bought from a different company, and they're not really necessarily the greatest designs on tools. A lot of them are done old school. And I was working at this tool for a very, very, very long time. Typically it takes me about 4 hours to do a setup. This tool took me about a week to get it running to where I wanted it to be. And we had ran about 1,500 parts today, and all of a sudden scrap marks appear on this. And I know that when we have scrap in this tool, we have to pull out the strip and start all over, which is a son of a gun when it comes to these tools. So I wasn't necessarily willing to do that. I was wondering if I could find where the scrap was happening, where the scrap was forming, if I could cut it out of the strip and run the strip through without that section of the part. I go to pry open the leg on the part. My hand slips and I slid the top of my finger across the whole surface of the wall of the part. And as I'm thinking of it, man, it makes me cringe a little bit. I had a gash probably 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more deep, and about a 1/2 inch long on the top of my finger. And as soon as I felt it, I knew I cut myself. I cut myself all the time at work though, not up the street, but across the road. So usually it's okay. I'll let that one settle a little bit. Nonetheless, the second it happened, I knew that I was bleeding, and I turn my hand over to look, and I see that I'm already bleeding through both of the gloves that I was wearing. So quickly, I rip them off, and I grab the rag that's on the top of my toolbox. I have a clean box of rags. I grab a rag, hold it against my finger, and immediately make my way to the safety department, or the safety office, rather. We don't have a department that's dedicated just to safety. I mean, we usually don't have incidents like this a lot that require somebody to be sent out, but today was the day that the safety team member, that is I, who is first aid certified, CPR certified, AED certified, I certifiably wrecked the incident log for my department. And I feel ashamed about it because it was an avoidable mistake. Nonetheless, I am alive, I am breathing, everything is fine. I got a nice tetanus shot. I got Novocaine shot into my finger and stitched up, and I was out of there in no time. And it's just another lesson. They didn't tell me when you're an apprentice you're going to learn lessons like this, but you're learning something new every day. And today I learned just do it the hard way. Because if you don't do it the hard way, and you try to find the easy way out, you're going to end up bleeding, and then that's not my favorite thing to do. I preferably like to keep the fluids that are in my body in there until it's, time for them to come out. This necessarily wasn't the time I was looking for, but it is what it is. And now my finger is, as I'm anticipating this game, my heart is pumping. My heart is pounding. I'm so excited. Excuse me. Holy smokes. Must be a strawberry or a raspberry seed or something. I've got a nice mixed berry protein smoothie here to help me recuperate and regenerate and rebuild my fascia around my finger. Nonetheless, my finger is throbbing. It's just been throbbing. I'm feeling my pulse in it, and it's clearly inflamed. I have a swollen finger. And that leads me actually right into the first thread of the day, which I titled Inflamed is Tamed. I was scrolling along the Twitter here, the Twitterverse, and I decided to bookmark this thread because I thought it was quite interesting. You hear about different kinds of holistic treatments when it comes to what do you do with your injuries? And me being an endurance runner, somebody who's out there doing repetitive motion constantly, I run into some injuries from time to time. I don't like to take pills. I don't necessarily love going to the doctor because they love to give you pills. And I tend to take care of things through rest or through foam rolling or different kinds of deep tissue treatment, stretching, you name it, anything but taking a pill, popping an Advil. That's not really my forte or my way to go. And it turns out I've been doing things the right way. Punago. Pungao? Real Pungao? I don't know who this guy is, but he's got a cool name. He starts his thread by saying, "You hurt yourself." Hey, how'd you know? Sprained ankle, pulled groin, popped hamstring, doesn't matter. Grab some ice and Advil and bring the inflammation down. Terrible advice. Avoid ice at all costs, besides one specific situation. Here's what you should do instead. The thread goes on to read, in 1987, Gabe Merkin coined the term RICE, which stands for rice. Wow, of course rice stands for rice. I stand for rice too when I'm up at the buffet. RICE stands for rest, ice, compression, and elevation. Since then, almost everyone has treated injuries exactly this way. But it is wrong, and it has ruined countless body parts. The human body is made to heal. It does so incredibly well. There are things that we can do to speed up that healing, and there are things that we can do to fight directly against that natural ability. The problem with ice and anti-inflammatories is that they go against what the body naturally does when it's injured. You sprain your ankle, what is the first thing that immediately happens? The inflammatory response. Your body begins with inflammation, then comes repair, and finally, remodeling. None of the steps can begin until the previous step has taken place, so we must start with inflammation. There's an excerpt from an article here. Inflammation is commonly misunderstood and generally believed to be synonymous with swelling. However, the two are entirely different. Inflammation is the first phase of a three-phase sequence of tissue repair, while swelling is the accumulation of waste at the end of an inflammatory process that is not yet evacuated. Inflammation is not an undesired outcome that needs to be reduced or delayed, but rather an instantaneous defense mechanism with the primary objective of controlling the extent of cell injury and preparing the tissue for the process of repair. As noted by Ledbetter, inflammation can occur without healing, but healing cannot occur without inflammation. Ledbetter, like yellow Ledbetter? She lies and says she's in love with him. She can't find a better man. Moving on. Inflammation is a magical mechanism. When a tissue is disrupted, the body sends extra blood flow and fluid to the area. This compresses and stretches the nerves in the area. Nerves do not like pressure or stretching. This is why inflammation is painful, but pain is a great thing. Pain tells our body to avoid overusing the injured part. Ice and Advil mess this up. If you ice and take a pill to reduce this inflammation and pain, your body is unable to send those signals to stay off of that body part. This leads to excess usage, further injuring the part of the body part. The inflammation also stiffens up the tissue and area, immobilizing it. Think of this as a natural splint. This keeps the injured body part from excess motion until it is healed. Ice and anti-inflammatories disrupt this as well. They delay the inflammation and prevent the natural splint. This allows you to keep mobility, resulting in full range of motion before the damaged tissue is ready to be used, causing further injury. How about the actual healing process? The other function of inflammation is to break down and rebuild the tissue that was hurt in the first place. Inflammation releases enzymes that break down injured tissue and then accelerate new cell migration to the injury site to rebuild. This process is amazing, and once again it's interrupted by ice. Icing or taking anti-inflammatories to reduce inflammation is like putting a fire truck in super slow-mo while it is trying to get to a burning building. By the time it gets there, the building is beyond saving. So what should you do instead? This I will get to in a moment. But first, I do think we should touch on the one instance where ice and anti-inflammatories make sense. When you must be at your best soon after the injury. Imagine you are playing in the Super Bowl or the World Cup final, and you get hurt right before half. Nasty ankle sprain. While you now know and understand that ice and pills could lead to further injury, this is a risk that you must take on to get back out there and perform immediately. Inflammation inhibits near-term function and causes pain, so if performance is 100% necessary, reduce that inflammation to get back out there. But do not be surprised if this leads to further injury. It likely will. Anyways, how do I recommend healing the other 99.9% of times? Use the body. use nature, and use your diet. Using the body. Once the inflammation peaks, the body will use the lymphatic system to clear the area of the excess fluid and dead cells. The lymphatic system relies heavily on our movement to run its processes. If we only rest and do not lightly move and exercise the injured parts, we will struggle to clear the dead cells and cellular waste. This will lead to a buildup in the injured area, and it will stay swollen longer than it needs to. Ice even further slows down this function. I recommend light movement, as tolerated, throughout an injury recovery period to clear out all of the cellular waste and strengthen the injured part. Studies have found that early weight-bearing activities had led to faster recovery. Studies have found that early weight-bearing activities have led to a faster recovery of sprained ankles. You must use to heal. An article excerpt is added that says, the validity of performing bouts of active recovery has been examined in multiple studies. Buckwalter advocated the importance of imposing a load on damaged tissues to enhance the recovery process, stating that, although new approaches to facilitate bone and fibrous tissue healing have shown promise, none has been proven to offer beneficial effects comparable to those produced by loading healing tissues. The next one is one that many with traditional education about injury healing refuse to believe. Grounding. Use nature. For those not familiar, grounding is connecting the body to the earth through bare skin in any way. This allows us to feed off the earth's electric charge and benefit greatly from many improved vitals. This is why we have rubber soles on our shoes, by the way, to keep us from getting struck by lightning as we're walking in a lightning storm. This is actually true. Like, the earth is a ground for electrical current. So grounding is great for your soul, for your mind, for your spirit, for just feeling connected. Grounding has been found to increase our ability to heal wounds rapidly. Simply amazing. If injured, even if very minor, I always do what I can to get out and touch some grass. There's some excerpts here, and they read as following. Grounding appears to improve sleep, normalize the day-night cortisol rhythm, reduce pain, stress, shift the autonomic nervous system from sympathetic towards parasympathetic activation, increase heart rate variability, speed wound healing, and reduce blood viscosity, making it less thick. A summary has been published in the Journal of Environmental and Public Health. I'm getting distracted. Dan Orlovsky is on TV going over the keys of the game for Patrick Mahomes. He's always got some pretty good takes here. I think he's got Mac Jones listed as the top 10 quarterback this year, even though he's a backup. Anyway, moving on. Then comes the sun. Studies have shown that light therapy can be used to speed up the inflammatory processes faster than doing so in darkness. Research has also suggested higher vitamin D levels allow injured muscles to re-strengthen faster after trauma. Obviously, do not stay out too long to burn, but take advantage of morning and evening light, along with some midday exposure. The research on sunlight is just at its precipice. I believe sunlight helps us heal immensely faster than sitting in artificial light or darkness. Use diet. Finally comes what you consume. Avoid processed foods. This will lead you to excess inflammation throughout your body that goes far beyond what is necessary in this process. Eat proteins, strong proteins, especially collagen, in bioavailable forms, red meat, eggs, fish, nose to tail. Load up on antioxidants from fruits and spices. Eat healthy fats, your body craves them. Overall, it's clear. If an injury occurs, I would avoid at all costs ice, pills, rest. Instead, I would adhere to how nature wants us to heal. Use the injured body part as tolerated. Do not overdo or underuse it. Ground and get in the sun. Eat a diet that promotes healing. Surgery is slightly different. This is an event far more extreme than anything we were designed to go through, so I'm not suggesting this to be the best path for major operations. Some of the same principles can most certainly apply, though, like grounding and sunlight. And this makes sense for a lot of things that we go through, little tweaks, little pops, little bruises. This guy is he has a purveyor of raw, natural vitality with a PhD in all things honey, teacher and student of building an impenetrable body and mind. This is also not medical advice from Pungao. But I think he's onto something here with this holistic approach to things. Being a runner, I've gratefully never torn anything or had a serious injury like that. And I've also never dealt with anything through the taking of Advil or ibuprofen. Usually I save those things until I'm desperate. Like if I have a cold or if I'm really sick and I'm really feeling like nothing is helping me, that's when I'll reach to those extremes. But this is a big thing for me, just kind of being one with myself. We are what we eat, right? And as long as we eat good, we should feel good. These days, I've noticed a lot of times that when I'm eating poorly, I'm performing poorly. So I take what this guy's saying with much, much more than a grain of salt, pink Himalayan salt at that. And we could talk about food all we want, and we will with this next thread that was put out by Ben Smith Live. It begins with I titled this "We Are Being Poisoned," which we are through our processed foods. RFK just came out last week when he was making his endorsement for President Donald Trump, where he said that the young rate of sickness these days is really caused by the food industries and the food lobbies and the types of things that we're putting into our body. So let's read into this thread because I'm really interested about it. And it starts with, if pasta, bread, and red meat are so bad, then why did Europeans live to 100 plus and stay healthy? But when Americans consume these, they get chronically sick. After some research, I found a disturbing truth that explains exactly what's going on. It's not an exaggeration to say that Americans are among the world's unhealthiest people. 41.9% of them are obese. 70 million suffer from gut issues, and 48% have cardiovascular diseases. But why is this the case? Well, it all started with big tobacco. For decades, big tobacco publicly denied that cigarettes cause cancer. But many of today's American foods were brought to you with them. Since they are skilled in marketing cigarettes, they realized they could use similar strategies to hook people on processed foods. In the 1980s, tobacco giants Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds acquired the major food companies Kraft, Nabisco, and General Foods, allowing tobacco firms to dominate U.S. food supply and make billions from Oreo cookies, Kraft macaroni and cheese, and Lunchables. But how did they do it? Hyper-palatable foods. These foods find your bliss point by combining fat, salt, and sugar to trigger overeating and addiction. They are engineered to be irresistible. In the past 30 years, hyper-palatable foods have spread rapidly into the food supply. If Americans would skip at least one ultra-processed meal or snack a day, the sales would plummet by 7%. Ultra-processed foods are being linked in study after study to things like heart disease, diabetes, cancers, etc., which leads us to the disturbing truth. The source of your disease is in the food you eat. Chronic food illness kills up to 678,000 Americans a year. 60% of adults live with at least one chronic disease, while in Italy and France, those numbers are 37%. They drop by 23% in a country that is regulated correctly. Why are European numbers lower than the U.S.? For example, U.S. food additives are banned in Europe. The industrialization and evil marketing of poisonous processed foods lead to poor habits that cause inflammation, which leads to a variety of chronic diseases. Thus, what Americans eat is certainly making them sick. The French paradox is the best example. French people have lower incidences of coronary heart disease despite a diet high in saturated fats and moderate wine consumption. This shows you that there are massive problems within the Western diet. Let's start with potassium bromate. From baguettes to focaccia, potassium bromate is banned for human consumption in Europe, but not in the US. It's used to strengthen dough. There is evidence it's toxic and can even promote the development of tumors. But it's not just this substance. Specific substances banned in Europe but allowed in the US. Olestra, a fat substitute. Growth hormones in beef. Chlorine-washed chicken. Carrageenan, that's in dairy products. Potassium bromate. Azodicarbonamide. Okay. Azodicarbonamide. Azodicarbonamide. Bread is in bread and pastries. Brominated vegetable oil, like citrus-flavored drinks. Artificial food dyes, specifically yellow number 5, yellow number 6, and red 40. Recombinant bovine growth hormone, RBGH, in dairy. Now, I believe Fairlife is a dairy company that goes without RBGH and Carrageenan. Um, I really, I really don't take in a lot of dairy. I choose a substitute like almond milk, oat milk, flax milk is really good. It's really full on calcium too, which you miss out on when you lose dairy. But there's always a way around it, right? And it's worth it. Your health is worth the extra penny. The thread goes on to say the ultra processed foods trigger chronic diseases. They're low in antioxidants and high in substances that promote oxidative stress. This creates an imbalance between harmful free radicals and the body's protective mechanisms. Antioxidants, which neutralize free radicals and prevent cell damage, are crucial, but lacking in the processed diet. What about its effect on gut health? After helping 1,400 people with chronic gut issues, one of the most common causes was the ultra processed diet. It disturbs the gut's microbiome's balance and diversity, causing dysbiosis. This triggers systematic inflammation. And this is not the good inflammation that we were just talking about. The intake of saturated and trans fats, as well as refined carbohydrates typical in this diet, triggers the release of an inflammatory mediator. In contrast, a Mediterranean diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean protein sources reduces inflammation and protects against chronic diseases. In addition to the ultra processed diet, sedentary lifestyles and stress are associated with an increased risk of chronic disease. Europeans enjoy the art of doing nothing and daily walks, whilst Americans glorify the hustle, culture, and McDonald's. Even though the tobacco companies no longer own these food brands, many of the ultra processed foods we eat today were engineered by an industry that wrote the playbook on products that are highly palatable, addictive, and appealing to children. This is why more and more children suffer from chronic disease. To fight the industrial food complex, choose organic. Fresh from the farm, cook with organic ingredients, go back to basics to what food is supposed to be. It's not just about eating, it's about living and feeling better. Let's fight it together, one meal at a time. Brilliant and excellent. I have a lot to go in on this. I recently stopped eating protein bars. I would supplement a lot of what I'm missing out on with protein bars. Because I need a certain amount of protein per day. I need to hit my body weight in protein as far as the grams per day that I'm eating. And I weigh 195 pounds and I'm always moving. I'm always exercising. I'm always pushing myself. And I need to repair and rebuild my muscles. I haven't been sore in years because I eat the right amount of protein. However, what I do notice is I'm not performing as well. I'm feeling more cravings. I'm feeling more hunger, even though I should be satiated because I'm not eating anything when I'm eating that bar. I'm eating a bar that has whey in it, the amount of whey that I need, but it's also bonded together with all these different additives and substances that I have no idea how to pronounce or what they are or where they come from. So I recently stopped that about a month or 2 months ago. And what I've noticed is a more clear head, a massive increase in injury. I mean, just listen to the way I'm talking to you right now. It's 6:43 p.m. after being up for 13 and a half hours, getting my finger sliced open, getting stitches, going for a walk, doing shopping. I am full of energy, and that's just because of the food that I eat. I really believe that. I really think that just keeping it to one shake a day, eating more greens, eating eggs. I eat so many eggs because it's the most complete protein that we can get. You know, I'm not afraid to eat steak. I'm not afraid to eat chicken, the fatty parts of the chicken. I'm staying away from those junk foods, really. The majority of the time I'm not eating that crap. And it's crap. That's what it is. Now, let me take you back a few years ago to when I finished my half marathon. I was dealing with some things where I was under a massive amount of stress right before the race and immediately after. And that's when I began to binge eat again for the first time in about a year. You know, I had gone through and I started with a little bit of a cheat code with the keto diet. And once I finished that, and moved on after talking to a nutritionist and getting my macros sorted out and kind of getting pointed in the right direction on what foods I should eat, what foods I should avoid, I was on a really good path up until my marathon. I hit a little bit of a stress and I decided, okay, well, I haven't had ice cream in a while. Let me have some ice cream right now. And I remember just waking up in the middle of the night that night and stuffing my face. And that's been a problem of mine moving forward for a long time. And I think a lot of that has to do with the addiction that's brought on by the types of foods that I'm eating. And it makes sense now to hear that these companies were bought out and ran and operated by the tobacco lobby. I mean, these guys are evil. These guys have poisoned the earth for decades, starting out by disguising it as something that could be good for your stress. And eventually what we learned is that's the type of stuff that kills us, and they got away with it. Why? Probably had a lot to do with money. Nonetheless, it's been a battle now for the last couple years to try and negate all of those bad habits that were formed through the addictive processes of eating. And addictions are hard to quit, which leads me to the next thread. Why addictions are hard to quit, by Chase Austin. Overcoming addiction. If you want to overcome addiction, you can do so by realizing why you have them in the first place. You don't even want to be addicted, but you can't stop. This is for multiple reasons. Your daily life doesn't provide enough adrenaline or dopamine, so you resort to addictions just to feel something. Your life has become too mundane and repetitive, so you use vices to escape into more intense emotions. You must realize having an addictive personality is a good thing, but your goals are currently too small to feed its cravings. Something fed that craving. You're living below your potential, so you never hit your true red line. Pretend you were building a business, leading others, attracting beautiful women constantly. You would be provided with enough dopamine to redline and not need to seek it through your screen. 2. You could be resorting to addiction because you lack affection or self-love in your life. Tell your subconscious, I love you. Say it to yourself. Don't make this cringe. Repeat it over and over. You'll feel something. Talk to the part of your subconscious where your inner child exists. The subconscious keeps the memories of who you were as a kid, the feelings you felt, the needs, the fears, the insecurities. All of these emotions are chemicals that still exist in your body because the neurons in your brain have yet to be rewired. Age and maturity doesn't apply to the subconscious. It stores every memory, thought, and emotion you've ever had, and it never changes procedure unless intentionally rewired. If you're not aware of past trauma or codependency formed as a kid, those needs become like an itch that never goes away. This itch snowballs into bad habits because it's the only outlet you have for dopamine, affection, or sensations of feeling alive. To fix this, take more risks in life. Go harder in the gym. Do things that scare you. Live on the edge. Take time to think about how much of a G you are. Stop trying to force yourself to quit. Realize that having an addictive personality is a good thing, but only if you're steering it in the right direction. You're self-sabotaging yourself because you know you can become great, but being great is terrifying. You're scared of your own potential. Just let go. Allow yourself to ascend. Eventually, you'll find comfort in chaos because chaos means you're moving forward in life. This is huge, and this is powerful, and this is everything that I could say from overcoming addiction myself. I am now 7 years sober from alcohol, and coming up in less than a month here, I was 6 years sober from anything else. I struggled with a lot of this self-image issue. I thought very lowly of myself. I did not see myself as a quality human being. I did not see myself as somebody who was worth anything. I saw myself as lazy as fat. I called a spade and said there was nothing that I could do about it for a long time. And I found drugs, and in drugs and in drinking, I found a sense of relief. I found a sense of release from reality. That's what I truly feel like a lot of addiction comes from. You don't like the reality you're in, and you take the easiest way out to escape it. This is why I claim, and I continue to say to this day, that running saves my life. When I was in the office today getting stitched up, I told the doc, "When will I be able to work out? Will I be able to work out tomorrow? And if so, what are my guidelines and restrictions? Because this is what saved my life. Being in the gym, pushing myself, going harder, saved my life. In a time where I thought I could never be who I am today, trying, taking that risk, that's what changed my life. I'll talk about this until the day I die, until I'm blue in the face. You'll hear this story over and over again, and you'll eventually get sick of it, but whatever, I don't care. I remember so vividly when I first began to run. And that was taking a risk for me. Like, it wasn't really taking a huge risk. It wasn't taking a major leap. It wasn't like something that I said, this is scary, or this is potentially dangerous. I wanted to see what could happen because I hadn't done it. I wanted to see what the possibilities were. I wanted to see what I was capable of. And I just was on a walk. I was going for walks at that point, like 2 weeks. I was 2 weeks into regularly walking every day. And I said, I've lost 70 pounds. I bet you I could run. I'm in the best shape I've been in my life. I look better than I ever have. I feel better than I ever have. I bet I could go for a jog right now, and I couldn't. I lasted 45 seconds before I was out of breath and my lungs were burning. And I remember just pushing myself more and more every day and taking that risk. Like, oh, what if my lungs collapse? They won't. And they didn't. I got addicted to that feeling. I got addicted to the feeling of pushing past where I thought I had to stop. And that is what set me on the trajectory to put me where I am today. I took a risk with taking this apprenticeship. And there are so many times that I wanted to quit. And just like the drugs back in the day, I just can't. I can't quit until it's finished. I won't stop until it's over. It's not over until I say it is. It's not over until I've reached my mark. Just like when you're running in a race, In the Torrington Road Race about a month ago now, I was at the verge of not collapse, but I just didn't think I could go any further. But I kept reminding myself, this isn't the finish line. The finish line isn't at 3.5 miles. The finish line isn't at 4 miles. The finish line is at 5 miles, and you're going to get across it, even if you have to crawl. And I did. And I did it in a better time than I thought I would. I didn't hit the goal that I set for myself. And that's due to a lot of other things leading up to it that I'm going to correct moving forward when it comes to preparation of a race. But this right here, that thought of don't quit, finish, is the addiction that was formed that gives me the largest release of dopamine that I can ever think of. I feel more full. I feel more comfortable. I feel more in love with myself now that I'm doing these things with my addictive personality than I was 8 years ago when I thought I was having the fucking time of my life. And pardon me for cursing. That might be the first time I ever said the F word in this podcast, but I don't give a shit. This is how much passion and love that I have for the achievement that I've succeeded in life by beating addiction and overcoming and being the man I am today. That is the biggest achievement that I can say that I've notched in my life. And it brings me a massive amount of emotion to be able to be the person that I am, to say honestly to everybody who's listening that I love myself. That is something that moves me in a way I didn't think I'd be able to at one point. At one point I remember taking a video of myself thinking, if this is how it ends, this is how it ends, and just know I was doing what I loved, but I wasn't. And today I am. Every day that I'm out there on the trail, I am. If I drop dead of a heart attack while I'm on a run, just know that I fucking died happy. And I died a success. That's all it took for me, was to love myself. And that is the ultimate goal that a man or woman on this earth should have. You want to believe that there's something bigger than yourself and you want to live for that. You want to be an important piece of the puzzle. You want to be one of God's children that's making a difference, that's working with passion, it's working with purpose, and you want to love yourself in the process. Because nothing good comes from being miserable, except for a breakthrough. You're going to go through points in your life where you feel like nothing's worth it, where everything makes you miserable, everything is a drag. And then you have that breakthrough and you have that aha moment and you start working towards it and you don't give up and you use that addictive personality for good. And it brings you love. And that's the last thing that we're going to talk about today. I found a thread here from Dylan O'Sullivan, who took an excerpt from C.S. Lewis. And it says there is no safe investment. To love it all is to be vulnerable. Love anything, and your heart will certainly be wrung and possibly be broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give your heart to no one, not even to an animal. Wrap it carefully round with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in a casket or a coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. The alternative to tragedy, or at least to the risk of tragedy, is damnation. The only place outside of heaven where you can be perfectly safe from all of the dangers and perturbations of love is hell. What does that make you think? That makes you think of overcoming the addiction. That makes you think of taking the risk. Love is a risk. Everything in life can be a risk if you paint it to be. And putting yourself out there and being vulnerable, like, I mean, if you listen to the last 2 minutes of this podcast, 3 minutes of this podcast, I was practically crying. That's vulnerability. But that's love. That's because of the love that I have for the achievement that I've succeeded. For the fact that I know that I made God proud by being the man that I am. That is vulnerability. And that's what love is all about. It's about leaving yourself out there and knowing that you're doing it for a bigger purpose than you. Life is so much bigger than you. When you focus on yourself so much, you start to think so negatively. You start to go so inward. You start to forget what life is all about. And life, there is no answer to life. There is no blueprint to life. The closest thing we have is the Bible. But the biggest thing you can do in life is to live for other people, to live for something bigger than yourself, to push yourself forward when you don't want to, and to be selfless. Selfishness is a big, big way to harm yourself. You could go and put all that effort into yourself and never get what you want out of life. And when you do that and you look back, what do you have? What are the relationships you have? Are you fulfilled? Will you be fulfilled just dedicating 100% of your effort to yourself? Me personally, I don't believe you will. I don't think so. I think you have to spread yourself out. Spread yourself out in a way where you're not wearing yourself thin. You're focusing on yourself. You're focusing on your family, your friends, your loved ones. You're focusing on God. You're spreading all of this out equally. You always check in. You always have those moments of selfishness to check in. Make sure that you're 100%. Because if you're not 100%, you can't give 100% to anybody. But don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Take that risk. Because a broken heart can heal. Just like a broken bone can. Just like a sprained ankle. Sometimes you just have to sit in the nature of reality and realize that not everything is going to be perfect. And it most certainly is not. But the only perfect life that existed was Jesus Christ, and even he was put on the cross and crucified. This is an unanswerable question. Life is an unanswerable question. But it's worth trying. It's worth doing the work. You remember in math class, you had to write out your work and show your work when you were doing things. That's what life is. That's what life is it's doing the work. It's showing your work and just trying for fulfillment. And I hate to say you never will do anything, but you're never going to find fulfillment when you focus everything in on you. Give it away. They say that's big in addiction. That's big in recovery. Is you can't keep it if you don't give it away. And that's why I am who I am. That's why I'm on here today, going over these threads, trying to spread knowledge of ways to live a better life. That's why I'm always encouraging. That's why I'm open with my addiction issues. That's why I'm open with my sobriety. That's why I'm open and vulnerable with everything. Because I'm giving it away. I'm not keeping anything for myself here. I can't take it with me when I die and move on to the kingdom of heaven. I have to believe that while I'm here, every bit of knowledge that I have is meant to be spread. And if I have a voice like this that I could use You bet your ass I'm gonna use it. And with that being said, man, I hope that every single one of you enjoys the kickoff to football as much as I'm going to. I hope you all enjoy this podcast. I hope you learned something here today. And if I made you cry, I cried right with you. You could use my flyers and pamphlets as a tissue or a napkin. Just don't be afraid, man. Don't be afraid to be you. Don't be afraid to let yourself out. Don't be afraid to let it all out. And you never know what you'll find. You'll never know what you'll refill yourself with if you let everything go. Until next time, God bless.
I've been riding a wave like I surf. I've been leaning in and out of work. I could show you what it's worth. Money to the ceiling, I started at the dirt. I've been riding a wave like I surf. I've been leaning in and out of work. I could show you what it's worth. Money to the ceiling, I started at the dirt. I'm a night rider. Every time that I go out past midnight, I swear I get higher. Swear to God I get higher now. I'm a night rider. Every time that I give what I got, I supply that fire. I supply that fire, man. I'm a night rider. Every time that I go out past midnight, I swear I get higher. Swear to God I get higher now. I'm a night rider. Every time that I go out past midnight, I swear I get higher. Swear to God I get higher, man.